welcome to episode 14. Can't believe we've done this many. So welcome to We Are CC. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm not Tom Crown, who normally does the intro. He's unfortunately stuck elsewhere and leaving Poppy to do the intro. So the man who hasn't heard from the IRS since filing taxes, so they must have taken pity on him when they saw how much he lost to hacks and rugs. Poppy. I had a Bitcoin joke put in here for Mr. But it's just too much energy to share it. So, and the young man who goes by his rapper nickname 50 Satoshi, also known as Oz. And just a reminder, if you guys want to download any of these episodes, we put them all up on most of your major podcast venues. I think we're on Spotify, Apple. Then the main link is weareccpodcast.buzzsprout.com. All right, gentlemen. Well, for the first topic, let's talk about Bitcoin. As always, I think it's a good thing to lead off with since it is kind of driving the market around a bit. And Oz, you and I were just talking about this, but this really just feels like an endless, week after week of choppy markets in the same range. And I put a little picture in there. So you guys might remember last year during the bull market, there was a picture of death, with his scepter going, the traditional picture of death. And he was opening one door at a time. And it was like 10K, 20K, 30K, implying that he was killing all these resistance levels. Well, right now it feels like 40K, 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 which I think we just got back to right before this started. I didn't look at the chart. So we back at 40K?
We are. We're holding a 40200.
Nice.
Had a nice little breakout there. Start the week off nicely.
And after, what was up, 420, we hit 420, 42 something, right? So things are all going according to plan.
Yeah.
Any observations on your part, Mr. Day Trader? Anything you'd like to share about trading this market?
I mean, yeah, it's been tough. I mean, me and you were just talking about this. It's getting exhausted seeing these same levels getting hit time after time. Feeling pretty confident with the market. It's looking nice. I mean, we just had this big run up to 48, which was nice to see. We broke some really strong resistance there, which we've been struggling with for the last few weeks. And obviously, we're going to have those retraces. It always happens after those big pumps. But, I mean, it's only time before I think resistance will be breaking soon. And last week, we started off Monday with a 11% pump going through from like the 18th or the 17th to the 21st. And since the beginning of today, we're up 6% from the lows. So maybe we could repeat something like that. That'd be pretty nice. See the 42K levels hit again.
Yeah, this week in particular, well, I guess actually to recap last week, there was a lot of volatility last week and the few weeks before that, because what it appears like is the U.S. government, the Fed, and some of their fellow, I guess, politicians and elected officials have been making a lot of very strong comments about the inflation and their desire to bring down the inflation, and that they may have to take a more aggressive strategy. And in doing so, that's kind of front loading some of the pain. So to bring down inflation, they're going to have to cool off markets like the stock market, like crypto. And so every time these markets start to price in, the government, the U.S., the Fed strategy for tackling the inflation, and they think they have a good idea of where it's going to go, then it seems like the Fed comes out with another comment, about, hey, I don't think what we're doing is enough. I think that's, when we ended last week, that's kind of where things sat, and that's why markets looked a little bit gloomy. Now going into this week, we have the biggest earnings. I think this is the biggest earnings cycle, this week is the Q1 earnings reports for the stock market, and a lot of tech companies are going to be reporting their earnings. And so this, in my opinion, if they come out strong, could be a positive. Right. So some of these companies, especially the big boys like Apple, Microsoft, Google, or Alphabet, that could be a good thing for us. But if they come out and it appears like they're struggling, I mean, what are you guys' thoughts? You think that might be a negative for the market, or am I misreading this?
Well, for me, I think it's just we're still very much correlated, right? So I think there's a chance that we continue this little relief rally that we've seen since this morning. But well, this morning, U.S. time at least. But I think, there's a chance, I just keep my hope alive that the decoupling event is coming soon, right? But I think earnings I think are going to be interesting to watch for sure. And I think there's a lot of market pricing for interest rates as well, right? With the Fed rate kind of they're telegraphing the 50 bip hike, and really investors are pricing in a 75 bip hike at this point. So I think that'll be really interesting to watch. I'd hate to make a prediction though. These predictions are a tough one, man.
It's really hard. It's hard to make a prediction these days because not even even governments at this point aren't quite sure what direction they're going to go. I think it's anyone's ball game. I would think it's fair to say that on the longer term horizon, it's probably going to be a very scary, sloppy kind of macroeconomic picture. But in the near term, it really depends. If we hit peak inflation sooner, even say this month, next month, things could maybe find a course back to normal a little bit quicker. But until that happens, I think all bets are off, and we're waiting to see how the governments respond. So moving off of Bitcoin, because I don't think realistically it's most people's favorite thing to talk about, even though it is important, but it's not always fun. Bored apes. I feel like someone could write a novel on the number of times that Bored Apes have been hacked, that people have gone on to like suspicious websites and just kind of handed over their apes, and so on and so forth. So again, I guess it was only a few weeks ago their Discord was hacked. Now today or yesterday, their Instagram was hacked with a fake, I guess it was like a fake mint or something was posted. So I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, but here's mine. If I have a $500,000 asset in just a single monkey picture, I would not use that wallet where that picture is for anything else except storing that picture, that NFT. I wouldn't take that anywhere near the internet. But apparently a bunch of people still do. And I saw all kinds of numbers. I saw everything from like 10 to like 90 NFTs were stolen. Did you guys, I don't know if you guys saw that. Did you see anything about that?
Yeah, I saw that. I think it was 13 Bored Ape Yacht Clubs got taken, but then it was also a lot of regular accounts that didn't have any Bored Apes, but a lot of people were just focusing on the Bored Ape Yacht Club losses.
Yeah, the Bored Apes, the Mutant Apes, the Kennel Club, all those. I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like it happens all the time. So yeah, that's advice. If you have that kind of investment, especially if it's in a hot wallet, but just any wallet, don't use that for like day-to-day stuff, please. I don't know how.
Yeah, guys, cold storage, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the single monkey picture's got it is what it is, right? But yeah, putting that in a hot wallet and using that wallet for all kinds of, regular trading, it just seems not worth it because, I mean, MetaMask wallets are free and ledgers are really hardware wallets are really only like
hmm
$100. I don't know. Seems like an easy thing for us to say, but I guess it's a little harder in practice. It's really interesting. These are really expensive lessons to learn for some of these
Yeah,
folks.
I do sympathize. It's a lot. That's life changing, beyond life changing money for a lot of these people. So, uh, you know, sympathize, but also we got to learn our lesson here. can't can't keep doing that. Yeah, even just MetaMask. I mean, you can make new wallet addresses for free if nothing else, and then just make a new one and move your ETH over to that. I think one of the challenges though that you have is, and you see this a lot of Discord communities and some other websites where you have to prove ownership of that NFT to gain access to services or other things. And that's, I guess, something that's maybe there's not so much a more elegant solution to that yet. I think it's like Collab Land is one, and I know I don't own an ape or anything, nearly that expensive, but I get nervous every time I got to do that to prove that I own an NFT so that I can get access to like the owner chat, the alpha chat.
I think that is a big problem, actually. Basically, I had a big loss as well with an NFT. I've had this. I've kind of had the experience of losing an NFT because I was stupid before. And it's an expensive mistake to make, but it's not the kind of mistake you make when you have a 400k NFT. This is like a house. In some countries, you can buy a house for that, and you shouldn't just be logging into that wallet with that much money sitting there, because unless it's in cold storage, it is just sitting there for the taking. All it takes is one malicious link, like this proves, and your house is now gone, pretty much. So it's an expensive mistake, but it's something easily fixed. I bought a ledger because the NFT hurt like hell to lose, but now all of my NFTs are safe, and all it cost was like $70, and now all of my NFTs are safe. So I mean, if you have 400k in an NFT, the least you could do is spend $70.
Yeah, and it's not just the other part of it too. It's not always storing it on the hardware wallet, but knowing not to click things that you shouldn't. So it wasn't just apes this week. This is a regular occurrence, right? So another project that's kind of up and coming, Mad Meerkats. They have NFTs that have come to be fairly valuable on the Kronos chain. Their Discord was hacked this week. One of the moderators, I guess, had his account compromised. And just like the Bored Apes tactic, all they do is post a link up to a fake website, fake mint. In this case, they advertise it as baby meerkats, which, okay, I don't know, the crypto space obsession with like baby versions of stuff or dogs and yeah. But apparently it worked and it did trick a few people. They clicked on the link, they lost their NFTs. And this is the thing, I think no reasonable project out there is just out of the blue with no context, no hint, no anything going to say, hey, we're dropping a mint right now. You knew nothing about it. It's not on the roadmap. It's not anything. If I see that, I would wait a few minutes. I'd wait 10 minutes. I'd check with the community. It's like, hey, did you guys know about this? I'd rather miss being able to mint something than risk, losing money.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. They're preying on that FOMO culture, right? And I think that's really good advice. But to be real, man, don't you want to be first in on that mint? So maybe it's not that 15 minutes. Maybe it is just kind of just a quick check to make sure it is real. Maybe it's like hopping over to the Telegram and just pinging an admin and making sure that it's legit. Yeah, I saw those, the Discord exploit, which is really unfortunate, especially because Discord does have some 2FA protections built into it. It just kind of goes to show you, right? There are so many vulnerable points that can be exploited, right? All these different risk vectors are out there, and it's sometimes things that you wouldn't even think of, all in service of getting you to try to click something, right? Getting you to try to interact with something. We spoke to it, I think, a couple weeks ago, if not, last week even. Always be careful what you're interacting with, especially if it's a really valuable hot wallet you're using. It is the Wild West, right? But I guess, to kind of go against what I said before as far as, and what you said, Pap, which was, feeling bad for these guys and these are expensive mistakes. There is a way to look at this too, where these bad actors and these hackers are kind of acting in a very similar way as short sellers, for example, and leverage short players. It is a balance to the market, right? When things get too FOMO-y, things get too leveraged, you get cleaned out, you flush out the leverage after a while. But when things get a little too much FOMO and folks are a little too loose with their hot wallets, maybe this is the counterpoint to that. Maybe this is the, I guess, lesson or the exploit version of a bear, right? Coming in and kind of showing what the market can do when you're not paying attention enough.
It's a different way of looking at it, but yeah,
it is a little bit.
I can see where you're coming from. So I think that to sum it up, please don't click on things if you're not 100% sure what it is. So speaking of NFTs, an NFT project did us all a favor, especially if you're an Ethereum investor. I feel like we hear these stories once in a while too, thanks to the beauty of smart contracts that cannot be updated. Another 11,000 Ethereum are lost forever, probably locked away. A project named Aku Dreams. From what I understand, they had an issue with their contract, their smart contract. And the $34 million or 11,500 Ethereum that they raised from minting cannot be accessed. So not the team, not anyone. Now they did follow through and they did, I guess, distribute the NFTs, or everyone got the NFTs that they were trying to get. But I believe last I saw that those funds are not accessible. Isn't this happening? Like, does it seem like every couple of weeks this kind of thing is going on? Because Mister, you probably know a little bit more about smart contracts than me, but I believe on Ethereum, it's not true for every chain, but on Ethereum, you can't modify an existing contract. You'd have to launch a new one, I guess, and somehow port stuff over.
Right. Well, I mean, there are varying degrees of that, right? And it really depends how the contract was built in the first place and what kind of parameters you can still interact with. And then on top of that, it really depends on if the admin keys are still live or if they've been burned. So there are a lot of layers to this kind of immutability and just how static a smart contract is once it's deployed. But I think in this case, it does look pretty bad. It's unfortunate, where, like you said, 11K ETH, you're talking about $34 million permanently just trapped in that contract. I guess, there might be things that the devs can do. It's looking like an unlock is not likely, but there may be some other ways to leverage like all the ETH that is in that contract somehow, if they have built in some tie-ins from that contract to interact with other contracts. But yep, I think it's going to be a long shot, to be honest. Really feel bad for these guys. And, it does go to show just how, scary it is to be responsible for all this capital and how a small little mistake can really change the future of an entire project, right? And really, really change the future for all these investors that have now been locked up, essentially.
Yeah, it's a big burden. It's a big burden to take on some of these projects and to put your faith into that smart contract as it is. In most cases, I think it'll turn out all right. Right? You have a lot of successful projects that deliver meaningful services to people in DeFi and NFTs and elsewhere. But every once in a while, something funny like this kind of trips it up, and it's kind of a new domain for engineering to think about these. You're basically, like in the case of some of these DeFi projects, you're basically building an entire banking apparatus into the smart contract, and then much of the stuff that would be done by a person at the bank is done by the contract itself. And so you can only imagine the complexity that goes into that, and then to make sure it's secure. I don't know that I'm not an engineer, so that every time I think about that, I start to, I break out in cold sweats thinking about it a little bit. But, that's why I always look for projects that are heavily audited, because there's so much value in that, not just from a security perspective, but making sure the darn thing works.
And speaking of audits, right, not all audits are the same. You can go through multiple centralized audit firms and, without trying to make a value statement on some of these audit firms, but a lot of times it does just read like a checklist of things that they checked off, just kind of best practices and code hygiene. And you really don't get much out of a lot of these audits. So even with an audit, it's important to understand just what that audit approach was. Were they just going through a checklist? Were they just advising on best practices and maybe some code cleanup? Or have they gone deeper? Have they analyzed exploits? Have they analyzed potential flaws in the approach where one change or one little mistake could be catastrophic, right? So just having the audits themselves is not even a guarantee anymore. It really does come down to the quality of the audit, and the comprehensiveness and the approach of the audit. But what we're talking about, like exactly like you said, Pat, we're building basically banking infrastructure on not, by removing the humans, right? By putting these processes into smart contracts that are largely immutable, as you said too, there, Pat. And that is what we're trying to do. We are trying to remove the human element as much as possible. But unfortunately, this is kind of the other side of that coin, where in the traditional financial space, fat finger mistakes happen all the time, right? And too much money gets sent over somewhere. But the thing about that is it's all very much human powered, and there are people that can make the decision to reverse those transactions or whatever mistake happened. We don't really get those same kind of abilities to reverse a mistake sometimes with these smart contracts. And I think this is just kind of like owing to the I guess, the dual nature of just what we're trying to do, but it is very early. It is still very early, and a lot of these mistakes will just, I guess, roll up into a more stable and secure future for the entire space eventually. It's just we're clearly not there yet.
Not yet. Wait until we invent artificial intelligence, proper artificial intelligence, and then it manages the smart contract. But what if it decides you don't deserve the money? It wants to keep the money for itself.
That sounds a little scary, but let's go. Let's see what that looks like.
We're worried about the machines overthrowing humanity and killing us, but what if they just really take all of our money and like gamble it away on crypto?
Yeah, they take all our monkey pictures and go gamble it away.
Yeah, they have those. I checked that out. Someone had posted the link in RCC once. There's a lot of them, a lot of different like gambling crypto sites. I don't encourage anyone to use them, and to be wary of some of the shadier ones. But there was one that I was at that takes your NFTs as collateral, and a couple of the ones I had, I don't have any like blue chip ones, but I have some that they're okay. They're worth a little bit, and they're willing to, hold it while you gamble. And, I guess you could take it back if you make enough. You pay back whatever the loan is, but if not, they keep it. And then they had a secondary marketplace that you could buy these lost NFTs from. And boy, I would hate to be one of those people, because I know some people have a gambling problem. Imagine gambling your Bored Ape away. I bet it's happened. In fact, I'd say that the vast majority of crypto day traders might have a gambling problem. What do you think, Oz?
I don't know. Probably true. I mean, the amount of people that lose money and the fact that 100x is on like almost every single exchange, it's probably true.
Don't deny it. It's okay. We can get you help for your gambling problem. So talking about NFTs, the next thing that we are going to discuss, this is maybe a little bit more of a vent. We are talking a lot about NFTs and some related topics. Now, this one is about the convergence of decentralized finance, which we were just discussing, and NFT technology. There was a meme that some popular account posted this week where they show the DeFi engineer talking about how he designed this new automated market making D app. The LP payoff matches the options, making it possible to have efficient options market on blockchains, blah, blah, blah. Something real techie. And then it shows a picture of an NFT investor. They added staking to the NFT, and he's excited. But here's the thing about just adding this random utility to NFTs, and this is more of a warning, I think. And Mr. Yu, is the kind of career DeFi guy, I'm sure fully appreciate this. But make sure that the utility your NFT adds has real utility. Taking a picture of, say, a koala, like you have koala, maybe there's like a 10K collection of koalas, and you can stake it to get a eucalyptus token or something. Make sure that the eucalyptus token actually has value. I've been in some of these projects, and they're like, yeah, you could stake, and then I stake, and it's worth like a third of a cent after a month. I mean, it's pointless. I've spent more on gas fees just to lock it up.
Right, because all you're doing is just kind of band-aiding or just kind of layering on these random solutions that happen to integrate this NFT. But I think the question should always be asked about sustainability, where the value comes from. A lot of times the value may be in the utility. Perhaps that utility is tied to revenue, and then you really have I think that is a really good place to start, right? When you can derive value from revenue, right? And in that way, you start to set a valuation model, an approach to valuing whatever it happens to be, a token, a coin, or an NFT, that is not purely just up to market whims, but is justifiable through some fundamental metrics, right? And then you can start to design systems that, yeah, like this guy, right? LP payoffs match that of options, have a more efficient options market on blockchain. That statement is just so full of so many buzzwords that would be a red flag for me. But I think it kind of comes back to just kind of making sure that the underlying tech is there, that the fundamental values are justified, and that they build on top of it rather than, hey, I have this thing, and I'm just going to create this other completely different mechanism that happens to rely on this thing that may not even be that well integrated. And I think therein lies the risk, right? Therein lies the sustainability risk, the valuation risk, and really just whether or not the mechanism even makes sense at the end of the day.
Yeah, all good advice. I'm also told that my mic keeps going in and out. So hopefully this is better. Just yell at me if it's not. Don't be...
There he is, just spinning on a chair.
Yeah, I'm spinning on a chair. Is this better?
Yeah, way better. Just sit still. It's fine.
Just sit still. I will stop spinning. I'll even move my input gain up a little bit for y'all.
Just kiss the mic there, Pat.
Just
kiss the mic.
No, you know what I need to get? It's like a setup like Tom Crown has, where he's got that little bar extends, over your computer in front of your face.
Oh, the boom arm.
Yeah, that thing. That's what I need.
Yeah, we need one of those.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, but to sum up the NFT discussion, this is a case of, and I've been seeing a lot of this, especially as market conditions have been, we'll say, more challenging than they were last year. You're seeing a lot of people trying to peg on different ways to their project of drumming up excitement and drumming up interest, but just kind of after the fact slapping something like staking in there or alpha chat into your Discord, that's not going to make a fundamental difference in the project, so really think hard, long and hard about what you're investing in and whether it does have a kind of sustainable long-term plan for the utility that it's promising. So one of the big stories this week, you guys probably saw this, it was quite a bit of drama, I believe, across crypto Twitter. Rumor from, I believe he's like Crypto Whale, that account.
No, it originated from Oz.
Oh, you found out? You found out first?
No. This guy named Oz. Let me find it. It's like Oz and then altcoins or something like Oz, CEO of alt season. And then I think it was Whale Alerts that picked up after that.
Yeah, so basically the rumor is that MicroStrategies, i.e. Michael Saylor, the king of Bitcoin maxis and bulls, although some people would take offense to the Bitcoin maxi term, but he really is largely, in my opinion, largely responsible for driving some of that institutional corporate interest in Bitcoin during this past cycle. And the rumor is that he sold some of his Bitcoin holdings, or that MicroStrategy, his company, or MacroStrategy sold some of their Bitcoin. Now, the numbers that they showed, I believe, was less than 1% of their holdings, if I read that right. It's
tiny.
Yeah, if it's true. Now, a couple of things to caveat here. One, it's written in black and white that they may occasionally sell things. It's not unusual. But two, there's actually no proof. And then three, he's also required per the SEC to report these. So even if he did, it wouldn't be a secret for very long. Now, I will tell you something spicy. the largest holder of Bitcoin in the world, Grayscale, they sold 1,000 Bitcoin and 6,000 ETH in the past month. And guess what? That's 0.01% of their total holdings. And they do it weekly. They publish this online. It's common knowledge. And all of that to say, you could call those guys perhaps they are without a doubt the biggest investors in Bitcoin. Even they are buying and selling from week to week. It's normal. So I did see a lot of people upset about that, and maybe they feel a little bit offended because, Michael Saylor is the king of laser eyes. But, what do you guys think? Is if he was selling and he was selling the numbers that they listed, is it a big deal? Or is it kind of like a, non-news item here?
I mean, it's the nature of the market nowadays. You really can't be that profitable over the last few months unless you are buying and selling. I mean, we've been on a range this whole time. Do they just expect them to not try to trade it? Like, they're a hedge fund. That's their whole ambition, is to make money. So it'd be a bit naive to believe they're never going to sell. But there's also a few things. If you put it into the block explorer, it comes up with 2 annotations, and there's also news that the accounts could be tied to Bittrex, the centralized exchange. So there's a lot of possibilities where this money actually is, and it's not really confirmed whether it's MicroStrategy's. So it could just be people trying to push a narrative. But if it's not, then it's still a tiny amount of money for MicroStrategy. I think they have something like 125,000 Bitcoin now. And the numbers they're saying is like 3,000 Bitcoin, which is nothing. It's tiny. For them, at least.
Yeah, I was just going to caveat that. Tiny for them. So how much did you say? Like 120,000?
I think it's 125,000 Bitcoin they ran.
Okay. Do you know how much Grayscale has?
No idea.
Guess. Go ahead and guess. I love making you guess live.
I'm going to go like 180 to 200K.
That's it? No, they got 640,000 Bitcoin.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, in the past week, they've sold 249. This is all on the internet. You could just Google Grayscale Holdings. This is one of my favorite things to do in my free time, honestly, because you get to look at what basically the richest crypto fund in the world is doing with what they have. And they have some interesting choices, too. I'm not sure I would agree with everything. They have a lot of what I would frame as like boomer coins, kind of older stuff that I would guess 90% of this audience isn't even trading or even actively interested in. Stuff like Zen or Bitcoin Cash, or Stellar even, I think isn't really that popular anymore. But they have some newer stuff like Solana, Batmana, So in any case, I don't think me personally, I don't think it's a big deal, but Twitter was kind of crucifying Michael Saylor a bit. I would say give the guy a benefit of the doubt if he is, or if the company is trading a little bit. I think it's to be expected.
Yeah, I mean, it does just seem like a crusade on him.
Well, it's not the first time I've seen that. There's a lot to be said for kind of cultivating a certain type of personality and a culture around you as he's not just the head of MicroStrategy. He's kind of representative of like the whole Bitcoin community and the whole crypto community by extension. So I can understand why they see the headline, it's sensationalist, they get a little bit upset. You see it a lot. People online like to get upset about things. Like people were upset that supposedly, I don't have proof of this, Bill Gates was shorting Tesla. Did you see that?
Yeah, but it's not a huge position compared to his portfolio size. So it could just be a hedge. Maybe he has billions in longs. Who knows?
True. Yeah, maybe he has like 10 billion long, on Tesla. Yeah, you really don't know the full picture, but Elon kind of threw him under the bus a little bit, I think, if that is true. But I guess we'll see. It's funny just seeing, billionaires kind of dig on each other on Twitter. So continuing our NFT topic, I think this might be one of the last ones, and we move into some other stuff. But NFT mint prices have been slowly climbing over the past couple quarters. When Bored Apes minted, I forget the exact price, but I know it was a fraction of an ETH. Was it like maybe 0.08 or something? Right. And if you consider them the blue chippiest of the blue chip next to punks, it's important to consider where they started. And then you have other projects that have minted for free. A few have done very well. For example, NFT Worlds was a free mint. I think it's probably around 10 ETH right now. And so this trend of prices slowly climbing up 1, 2, or more ETH, I think was Moonbirds like 2.5. I don't know. Did you get in on that, Oz? Are you retired now?
Oh man, I wish. No, that was a crazy ride. I remember watching the charts and like people in TA chat were just screaming about that all day long.
Man,
so they missed out on the gains.
We weren't going to talk about Moonbirds here, really, but it's incredible. I have no other words for it, but that price appreciation, that whole project is just insane. I don't know what they did, but it's like lightning in a bottle times 10.
They did something right.
Yeah, but needless to say, other than when you have, great luck with something like Moonbirds, in most cases, those high mint prices aren't so great. Let's look back at one of our favorites, Pixelmon. Wasn't theirs also a little bit more expensive? I forget the exact price, but let's just say whatever you paid, it wasn't worth it. Doesn't matter what it was. And
yeah, it's quite expensive.
Yeah, well, especially very expensive for some artwork that they got off of Fiverr. So
you're so convinced it's Fiverr.
Yeah, I know. It may have been something else.
It could have just been the design intern that the 5-year-old design intern. Don't forget about that.
One of them had a child. They just handed him a piece of paper, told him to draw away, and they sold it.
There you go.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, Pixelmon. We love you guys.
We do, but we are gonna rag on you in a few minutes. But here's my game theory. I don't think these projects want you to mint if you don't have money. So think about this. This is a little bit of fact finding. So I think both Pixelmon and Moonbird's initial mint was somewhere around $70 million that they brought in. I'm approximating here. I'm sure it was a little bit different, but $70 million for, these 10, I don't remember how many Pixelmon was. Let's assume 10K collection. So even with those extra benefits, I think what is that? Maybe, shit like the Moonbirds, we were talking maybe a few weeks max to get that kind of artwork together. I mean, most of those are pretty simple. It's pretty simple art. It's not even, three-dimensional. At least I'll give Pixelmon some credit. There's 3D models there, right? That could take a little bit longer. But let's say even, being generous, what do you guys think? Maybe a few months for a really engaged creative team to put together quality PFP 10K collection art?
I mean, yeah, I think the month scale is totally reasonable. Just kind of coming from my own, noobish understanding of design, just kind of through a marketing lens. Quality content takes time to develop, So yeah, if what you're getting at though, Pap, is using that to understand kind of where red flags may lie, then yeah, sure. If it comes to market too quickly, I think you have to kind of question just the intent through the implied effort that was put in, right? You want to make sure that folks are taking it seriously, right, and they're really treating it as a professional, as a business, really. At the end of the day, that is kind of what we're talking about here, right?
Yes. Well, with a big exception for the artists out there, if you're an artist and you're doing like one of ones, we're not talking about those kind of people, right? They're an artist first, businessman second.
Yeah, we're talking about like dynamic generation and right.
But we're talking like the 10K collections, and what I'm really getting at is some transparency, right? And so I want to encourage people to start asking these questions because I think not enough people do. So here's an assumption. Let's say you got 2 to 4 person team to launch a project like that. Let's just say 4 people. 4 people, maybe optimistically salary for the kind of work that they're doing. This is pretty generous, $250K a year per person. So now you're $1 million a year for salary. So they mint out, they got $70 million. That's incredible profit margin already. Now compare that to an average small business, which I went and pulled the numbers for that. So for a team, on average, a team of 2 to 4 employees, net profit yearly for a small business of that size is around $30,000 a year. So not much. Their revenue per year is around $400,000. So again, far, far below the 70 million, right? And these are full-time employees. Now, what's the delta there, Mister? That's what, 70 million minus 30. Well, I guess we'll say 400,000. So like $69.5 million more they've made this year than the average business of comparable size. So the question you really got to ask is, where's the transparency? What are they doing with all those extra funds? That's a lot of money. It's a ton of money. And I know some people are like, well, they created a project that has value. They deserve some money. Do they deserve $69.5 million? Oh, we could say 69,420,000. But do they deserve that much? I don't know. I guess the deserve is maybe a little bit of a loaded question, but
That's a tough one to crack. Yeah, right. The value statement on the deserve is kind of a problem, but I think it's and when did I become the math guy? Am I your human calculator?
yeah, you're smarter than me. So
I don't know about that, sir. But
I'm awful at maths.
and Oz is still, he's still doing high school math. So
says the day trader. I think this does speak to, though, just the efficiency, though, right? The one thing that crypto sometimes gets harped on for is just how value is created, right? And sometimes that, forgive me, that does rub me the wrong way sometimes a little bit, really because, what we're doing in DeFi at least is building analogous systems to the traditional finance space, right? Arguably in a way that creates value far more efficiently and is able to move capital far more efficiently than you can with these traditional systems. And it comes with the risks, right? Everything we're talking about today. But at the end of the day, I think it's one thing to look at the efficiency of creating this value and generating revenue for a small business, but looking at it from the Web3 lens, I think does change that calculus a little bit. So it's really hard to put that, do they deserve it, to kind of like, back that up with a number of what they might deserve, because they are operating more efficiently, right? What is that? I guess, multiplier on that efficiency? I think that's the big question right now.
true. So I guess what you're saying is perhaps the model that they have and how much revenue they're bringing in is comparable to maybe a larger company.
Perhaps, yeah. Right.
Okay.
That
Yeah,
whole
fair.
team
That's
of
fair.
humans that you might have needed in the beginning might be handled by one smart contract, right? Something like that. That kind of way of looking at it is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess when you think so, and this is fair. Now don't take any of this as me ragging on every single NFT project out there. I love NFTs. I love the space, but there's some projects I think would greatly, vastly benefit from more transparency, because I've seen this question asked in many communities. What are you guys doing with all the money? You had promised this roadmap XYZ, and we haven't really seen anything, updated in terms of like what you're doing to satisfy that. Meanwhile, you're sitting on all this money that we as a community and investors and buyers and supporters have put into it, right? But yeah, when you think about like the 10K collections, take them as an example, instead of hand drawing everything, right? You hand draw those design elements once, and then you use an app to build, each of those into like a randomized model, each one unique. That probably saves a ton of time versus doing 10,000, pieces of artwork individually.
Right.
So I could see,
and there's that efficiency, right?
Mm-hmm. Plus the smart contract, again, removing that whole kind of overhead cost of managing all the invoicing and billing and transactions. So, That's something I'm going to have to sit and stew on for until the next podcast. I didn't think of it that way.
Hey Pep, you're going in and out a little bit. Just you asked us to yell at you.
Yes,
here's a little yelling.
I think I need to get in the mic. I'm practically making out with the mic right now.
Crack open the safe and buy yourself a good one. Get yourself the boom arm too.
Hey, I need the boom arm. This is a good mic. I think it is. So yeah, my challenge to you is the NFT projects you're in. If they've promised things, they're not necessarily delivering as you hoped, and they are sitting on very large coffers. Ask the question and don't be shy about asking it. If it's that kind of community, if it's like a one-of-one artist and he hasn't promised or they haven't promised anything, that's different. You're investing in the art because you love the art, or perhaps you just want to support an artist. But some of these, like Pixelmon, and the reason we bring up Pixelmon is, hey, pop quiz. Do you guys know how long it's been since they've tweeted anything?
2 months.
2 months, I was going to say.
Yeah, exactly. Today, April 25th is the 2-month anniversary since that glorious launch by Pixelmon, and they haven't tweeted since, not a single thing. And, I'd love to know what's going on. I'm not saying that they're ripping people off, but
aren't you though?
I mean, that looks mighty sus.
A little bit.
I wonder what they're doing.
I don't know. I was in the Pixelmon Discord for a hot minute. I'm not in there now. Maybe I got to go back and visit before the next episode just to see. I really got a kick out of it because everyone loved Kevin. I mean, Kevin's great. He probably still holds a little bit of value, but man, I feel bad. I'd really be wondering what's going on if I wasn't in Discord, and you're just sitting out there waiting to hear something. It's a scary time.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you make a good point about, and I think this is, maybe a common theme that we have throughout maybe this episode is kind of just trying to find that intersection between NFT and DeFi, right? And it's happening. The thing is, though, the DeFi space started off with the understanding that there's that transparency, with the understanding that there is an expectation for value creation. Maybe not always based on sound fundamentals. Sure, you have all very kinds of projects with different valuation models, but at the end of the day, it does seem like the NFT space is playing a little bit of catch up and trying to understand where the accountability is and how to ensure on chain that accountability is transparent, is visible, right? So I do think that we're going to start moving closer and closer together, but it is very, very possible that we may never get to that full transparency point just because the way the mechanisms involved are just so different. But that might just have to be table stakes. That might just have to be what you sign up for when you get into an NFT project, perhaps, right? If you haven't asked the questions ahead of time, then maybe that's what you signed up for at the end of the day.
You found a very elegant way of putting, kind of rolling this all up into one item, which is, taking some of those lessons learned from the DeFi side of the house, which I do think that you're going to see that, and you are already seeing that convergence of DeFi and NFTs. On one hand, you have like the Bored Apes, right? Now you have the Ape Coin, which is a decentralized autonomous organization that's a token that gives you voting rights within that DAO for the ape community. But on the other hand, the DeFi community did kind of start off on the other end of that spectrum, which is, hey, we're going to stand up basically a financial investing apparatus, like from day one. That's what this is. And we're going to do investment strategies, and you're going to vote and be a participant of that, basically like managing your own bank, your own investment portfolio, versus NFTs coming at it from the other end of the spectrum, which is, hey, you're investing in this artist and this art. And then that kind of grew beyond that into a community. And now the community wants to implement these DeFi best practices. And I think that's really great. But along with that, and along with those massive, war chests of millions of dollars, people should be asking these questions along the way of, hey, what are you doing with that money? Are you doing anything? Really going to follow up. We're going to dig into that Pixelmon though. I'm really just curious. It's more of a morbid curiosity than anything. I don't even know what to
Watch out, Pixelmon. You got Detective Pappy on the case now.
Yeah, Detective Poppy. I love it. A couple more things, and then we're going to jump into some of the Reddit stuff, and then we're going to jump into the Q&A. So did you guys know that Ridley Scott, the guy who made some big movies like Alien, Blade Runner, Gladiator, The Martian, he's making a movie about the creation of Ethereum. So I guess basically about Vitalik and his friends. That's super wild, right? Ridley Scott. I mean, this is a big director. This is one of the top guys in Hollywood.
That should be so cool.
Well, maybe.
I wonder how they're going to develop the story, though. I mean, like, because the thing with crypto is that people don't really know the backstory. Like, obviously, most people know about Satoshi. However, Vitalik, like, there's not a huge amount that gets really told about him. So if you can uncover that and kind of shine light on that, I think that'd be pretty neat.
Yeah, because I think honestly, Vitalik started off as like a teenager working with the Bitcoin community. And I don't know all the details, but I know at some point along the way, this guy decided, you know what, I'm not satisfied with Bitcoin. I'm going to create my own thing. And then, hate it or love it, you can't deny that what was accomplished with Ethereum up until now, the pure, amount of volume transacted over it, the apps that work on it, the NFT, all of this, all because of, this idea that he had when he was just, he was probably like your age, or he's probably younger even, I don't remember, that he came up with that. It's just wild. I'm sure they're going to do a part two. I think there's already a small film, I haven't watched it, about him, that focused on when they did the fork with Ethereum Classic and then Ethereum. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like they probably would want to focus on Vitalik, right? Because he's kind of that central figure. I just wonder who's going to play him. What actor is going to play him?
Probably get him. He's probably not a very hard guy to convince to do that. I mean, he goes to conventions dressed up in like bear costumes. Vitalik, starring Vitalik.
I am not watching a movie starring Vitalik.
A movie about Vitalik.
Be a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems like a terrible choice. No offense, Vitalik, sir. I have the greatest respect for you. Would love to have you on an AMA or something sometime. It would be a great honor. But he doesn't seem like he's a great actor. I'm just going to, he does seem like a very interesting guy, though. I don't know. I'm getting old. When I think of like good looking Hollywood guys, I'm thinking like George Clooney, Brad Pitt. They're getting over the hill, man. What do you Zoomers? What's the handsome guy in Hollywood now? Tom Holland?
Tom Holland and like Timothy Chalamet, I think. Timothy Chalamet is what all the girls like, I think, at least.
Okay.
All the girls in Oz.
Well. Well, then there we go. Yeah, we should do that. Put in the comments. Let us know what you guys think. Who you think would play a good Vitalik? I'm told that Vitalik...
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Would actually, that would be like spot on.
Yeah, dude.
He'd be perfect.
He's too old. Too old. Wouldn't work.
Says the George Clooney guy.
Well, yeah. Well, he's definitely too old. But yeah, Vitalik is, last I knew, a member of RCC too.
What?
He's commented occasionally. He's been here. I think it's been a minute, but I'm just gonna say, hey, sir, if you're listening, please hit us up. We'd love to have you on the podcast. Talk about anything. We don't even talk about Ethereum, right? We could talk about something else, like your new movie coming out.
We could talk about whatever he wants, as long as he comes on here. Yeah.
So, speaking of Vitalik, and this was not planned, but so Shiba Inu. Do you guys remember last year? They gave a bunch of SHIB to Vitalik. Do you guys remember that? It was like, I think it was like at the peak of bull market in like May 2021.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then he just kind of sat on it, and then he started giving some away. I think he gave like $1 billion or more to like some fund in India for feeding the poor or something, which is really cool. I respect that. I just saw a headline that said, had he held on to that supply of SHIB would be worth. Well, actually, I'm going to ask you guys, assuming you didn't read this, how much do you think it would be worth in today's money?
Like $1 billion.
10 billion.
32 billion.
Oh, wow.
$32 billion. It's just unreal. I mean, that's like instantly just, I mean, I don't even know if there's enough liquidity for that, to be honest. Probably not. But like, that's just an incredible flex right there. So basically, I think what happened was they gave him 50% of the supply to his address to remove it from circulation. This is a common tactic with certain meme coins, right? You get it, you launch for the high supply, it's cheap, people like it. They're like, I can buy a billion of these. Now it might only be, $100, but you get a bunch, and that's cool. People like seeing big numbers, and then you burn the tokens. By burning them, you usually just send them to an address that no one can get to, and they're removed from circulation. And that means that essentially the value of your individual tokens go up a little bit because there's less of them. So this is something that SHIB's done on and off over the past year. In fact, I think they're doing a burn event right now, but I think that was, at the time it was 505 trillion SHIB. It was only worth 8 billion back then.
Only.
Still blows my mind that he just kind of walked away from that kind of money. But he walked away, and I know it sounds like we're being Vitalik fanboys, but you got to respect this. A man that walks away from free, billions of dollars for free. He could have just cashed it out and walked away at that point. He said, where did we put? Yeah, he attached a note when he did the transaction to burn these. And he said that he would prefer the makers of currencies give them to charity, saying, I don't want to be the locus of power of that kind. So, mad respect. I would feel extremely tempted. I'm not going to lie. If someone sent me $8 billion of a currency, I would have a tough day. And if the wife found out, she would probably slap me for giving it away. But to be honest, she'd be pretty upset. We got to get a new roof. So, right there's $1 billion.
Buy a few roofs.
Yeah. So, speaking of this, and I had put a comment into the notes. We had, right before this, I think there was some news about Twitter. Was that you, mister, that was sharing that?
Oh, the Elon news, huh?
Mm-hmm.
52.40, 5,420 share price. Yeah, that's some big news.
So let's hit that, and then let's move into, we're at an hour. Then let's move into the Q&A. So what did you hear, and is that confirmed? Because I haven't actually. That was like right before this. I didn't even get a chance to look it up.
Yeah, it did seem confirmed. So could be wrong. I did get it from a reputable news source. Won't say where, because that'll make me just seem like a boomer. But which I'm not. Let's put that on the record.
Mm-hmm.
It does seem like it's going through. $44 billion. Elon will add Twitter to his portfolio of companies: Tesla, SpaceX, Boring Company, Neuralink, and now Twitter.
Well, and for those who missed it, if you're looking at the charts now, it's too late. Dogecoin already responded or reacted to the news. It was up over 20% before we started the podcast. So I know that's the first thing that came to my mind when you mentioned that right before. So I was like, hey, we got to get in on some Doge. Jumped into my app and it was already up 20%. So it was only like a few minutes into the news breaking.
Yeah, the bots are really quick.
Yeah, let's just wait for a retrace and get in. I do think that with Elon at the helm, the integration with Doge is just a matter of time, especially with the kind of reworked version of Doge that he and even Vitalik are working on at this point.
Yeah, Vitalik is on the committee or the group or whatever, working to upgrade Doge. And I'll say that, I'm not an active proponent of meme coins, but if you're going to invest in one dog themed coin, I've been leaning personally towards increasing my Doge exposure. I have exactly 420 Doge. It's all I've ever owned. I bought it like 2 years ago as a joke. And it's just sitting there. But I'm feeling like these days I kind of want to pick up more because he talks about so many crazy ideas. Like he's such a troll, Elon, sometimes, but like he's a troll that will follow through on things just because I guess he has that much time and money and resources that it's funny to create a functional cryptocurrency based on a dog and actually like implement it into things like his satellite. I mean, I don't even know where he's going with that, but he's talking about like how you could maybe he wants to make like a Dogecoin wallet that can link to the Starlink satellites that he has for an internet connection and transact that way. Or adding it to Twitter would be pretty spicy because people get Bitcoin, people kind of get ETH, but they really get Doge. I think if I had to guess, next to Bitcoin, Doge is probably the most recognized meme coin or coin in general. I don't know. Does that sound right? I'd probably have to Google that.
Probably. I mean,
Doesn't sound wrong.
yeah.
Doesn't sound wrong. That said, it's not financial advice. Don't go and do that just because Poppy said to. But, for me, for fun with a few extra bucks, I might buy a little bit more. But I've been pretty happy with my 420 Doge for now.
Yeah, it sounds like you need to buy 69,000 Doge and you'll have the right number.
Well, 69,000 is actually a good bit of money. I don't know if I'm, that committed to this idea. So, yeah, let's get to the Q&A. So, Oz, if you can find the first Q&A, and while you're doing that, I want to note an interesting headline from the subreddit. The user set one less noted that in 1999 there was headlines about how a lump of coal is burnt every time a book is ordered online, probably implying Amazon, and kind of trying to put down the .com boom. But that same kind of argument's being used now. And it feels like kind of an unfair attack, in my opinion. I mean, yes, there's a lot of energy intensive processing that goes into Bitcoin, but it's getting more efficient every day.
Yeah, and I think just the amount of respect given to these kind of narratives for me is pretty much zero. I think basically what it just shows is who doesn't know what they're talking about if they invoke any sort of energy or really just kind of like the not the kind of like, what do you call those? The red herring narratives. Because I mean it goes back, it's a tale as old as time, right? Like the Amazon thing. Even Google was, kind of susceptible with that, with their data centers to that narrative for a hot minute. But I mean, you take it even further back, and with the advent of like, color moving pictures, guys, right? Like right when Technicolor came out and started making movies in color, there was an entire uproar about how the colors are too bright and they're going to make you go blind and they're going to hurt your retinas, and now it just is the standard and nobody even remembers all that FUD that was created back then. And then you fast forward a few decades, and many decades I suppose, and you start looking at car headlight technology, and people were like, oh, these new high intensity discharge xenon lights are they're too bright, they're going to blind people. It happens over and over again, and it just kind of goes to that cycle, the adoption cycle, right? There's the clown phase where they make fun of you. There's the fear phase where they try to attack you, and then there's starts to become a couple steps down the line that adoption phase, and it follows that process time and time again. So it really is just, for me at least, a question of trying to identify the ulterior motives of these different narratives and who is talking about it, and really just helps me understand who I definitely will not be listening to, 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 will not be listening to.